Our second speaker is Helen Alexander. Helen's evaluator is Brian Hatano. Brian, would you mind standing and reading everyone Helen's objectives for the night?
Mr. Toastmaster, guests, and Toastmasters. Helen speaking from the Communicating on Video Advanced Speaker Series. Her objectives are to understand the dynamics of an interview or a talk show, to prepare for the questions that may be asked of her during an interview program, to present a positive image on camera, and to appear as a guest on a simulated video talk show. Their timing constraints are 9.5 to 10.5 minutes.
Madam Timer, what are the timing constraints for a 9.5, 10.5 minute speech?
Okay, so to qualify, 7 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm sorry.
Gary, we're looking for some, they're not, this was 9?
Yeah, qualify the 9, 9.5 the green, 10 the yellow, and 10.5 the red.
Okay, thank you. It wasn't listed on the sheet that way, so.
I just made it
sorry
up.
about that.
Helen Alexander is on the fast track to her Distinguished Toastmaster Award. She is currently an AC Silver, on her way rapidly to an AC Gold. Please help me welcome Helen Alexander.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and dignitaries and honored guests. The person who will be interviewing me for this is Cara Lane. She is a professional speaker in real life. And the name of this speech is Teen Girl Judo Brown Belt. Teen Girl Judo Brown Belt.
Good evening, everyone. I am so glad you came to this edition of Interrogation. I'm your host, Cara Lane. This evening, I brought a special guest with me, Helen Alexander. I will tell you the topic of tonight's event. It is judo. So I have to ask you, Helen, do I need to up security since you're my guest here tonight?
No. The special thing about judo, the whole name itself indicates judo is the gentle way. That's what it means in Japanese. It was developed by Jigoro Kano, a Japanese man, who took movements such as karate movements, which were originally somewhat violent, but he made it into the way for a smaller person in order to overcome a larger person through gentleness without anyone getting injured.
Well, great. Let's sit down and talk about this. First things first, how did you get interested in judo? I mean, it's not your everyday thing.
No, oddly enough, it was the beginning of the summer of my 13th year, and there was an advertisement. I lived on Andrews Air Force Base, where they have the president's plane, and it just said in the newspaper that there was a teen activity good for girls and boys. So because it said girls on it, I thought, I don't know what this is, but I'll just try it. I tried it, and I fell in love with it.
Well, great. I wonder if I would fall in love with it too. So is it for girls or is it for boys? Were you outranked as far as a lot more boys than girls? Tell us about that gender difference thing that everybody's curious about.
In the beginning, interestingly enough, it was about 50-50. There were equal numbers in the first, say, 3 months of it, while the people were white belts in the very beginning. As it went higher and higher, it turned out that it was predominantly male. So by the time people were black belts, almost everyone was male. I only knew one woman black belt. I myself got about halfway to black belt, and I was the only black belt young woman I knew.
Wow.
I mean brown belt young woman.
Wow, that's impressive. Let's give her a hand clap. All right, one of my favorite questions to ask. I don't know why, I must be a sicko. Did you get hurt? Were you injured?
Not once. In the very beginning, I would occasionally get a little friction burn from the mats that we used. There's one particular throw called Tomonagi, in which if someone's coming straight at you, you put your foot on the person's stomach, totally fall down to the ground and pull the person over you so the person flies over you. When that was done to me and I landed on the mat like this, having the wind knocked out of me, I was very uncomfortable until I could breathe again. That's the only time I was uncomfortable. That happened 2 or 3 times, and I learned not ever to push toward an advanced person in judo.
Good lesson, everyone. Keep that in mind. Now, on the same vein, did you see anybody else get really hurt in your days in judo?
In the judo that I was in, because I was a teenager and I was not a black belt, no one was allowed to use chokes, and which actually cut off people's breathing, and no one was allowed to use arm locks, which can actually break a person's joint. So arm locks or leg locks. So because those were forbidden, no one was in danger of having those kinds of experiences. And in none of the clubs where I never saw was a person ever hurt.
Oh, good. Good to know, everyone. All right, so next question. I don't know much about judo, but if you can tell us what it takes to get from rank to rank to rank, that would be very helpful.
There are 6 ranks below black belt. 3 are considered ranks of white belt. The first 3 ranks consist of primarily learning respect for the art of judo, very basic ways of falling, rolling, so that one doesn't get hurt, learning the very basic throws, the names of the throws, how to do the throws, and what goes into them, and the mat work, the grappling, which is similar to wrestling in America. Then the next ranks, the 3 ranks of brown belt, have to do with randori, which is the sort of dancing together on the mat, where you are perceiving what the other person's doing, you're figuring out how to take the best advantage of the other person's gravity and friction and the gravitation and the forces of physics going on in the situation. And also, if you're on the mat and somebody's trying to get you locked down into a hold, you getting out of that hold. So those are the 2 processes, not getting thrown and then not getting held down.
Wow, this sounds very interesting.
By black belt, once people are into black belt, they're getting into things like actually protecting themselves in very advanced situations. Black belts are able to do such things as to be thrown on concrete and not get injured.
My goodness. It's actually making me interested a little bit to take it for myself, because it's had to have come in handy at some point in your life. So why is this something that you're glad you did, and how has that helped you in your future life?
I found judo to have 2 major effects. One is the physical. Number 1, during a very important time of my adolescent development, I was learning the basic discipline of exercise and health, just getting into a healthy exercise pattern, which served me well the rest of my life. The second, though, actually, there were 3. The second was the culture. I learned the cultural sensitivity. I actually took some judo on Okinawa among Okinawan men, and men in the service, and people who spoke Japanese natively. So I learned that cultural sensitivity of doing something in someone else's own culture. And then third was the act of there's a certain intellect in the sort of the wrestling and grappling. There's intellect in having to figure out actually the physics of this whole situation, which becomes gets deep into one's self, into one's muscles. So I have to
be good at math to do judo?
No, because
physics. I heard the word physics.
You actually, it's no different from playing billiards and using the angles.
Oh.
It's the same kind of thing, except you do it in your mind, and plus the wonderful confidence that came from watching myself develop through so much fun, just like Toastmasters, developing through a fun activity and then having confidence and going through life knowing I accomplished something through my own efforts with guidance, but no one did that for me.
Wow. All right, I'm going a little off script here. She doesn't even know I'm doing this. Producers, you didn't know I was doing this either. So I'm going to ask you a big favor. Would you mind demonstrating one of the moves? Do you still got it?
That would be fine. I'm not able to see the clock, so can you tell me how we're doing for time?
I don't see a green light, so I say, let's see a move. I love doing this on interrogation.
Would you like to be the person with me or just myself? Myself.
I'll
do it myself.
All right.
What I could do
I think they said hurt me. I think that's what I heard.
No. What I would do is I'd be holding the person right at the chest level and then underneath the shoulder, underneath the elbow here. I'd be holding them here. We would be doing the randori, which is a kind of gentle stepping maneuver. If I felt that the person were pushing me right about at this level, I might pull the person underneath his or her shoulder, drop down into a crouch, put my arm around the person's hip, keeping my balance, so I'm totally in balance here. I can't be pushed or hurt. No matter how much the person weighs, the person is now over me. He or she totally has, at this sense, no sense of balance. The person is completely helpless. And then I would push up with my hips, push down, pull down with my arms, and the person goes down. Boom.
Whoa! Who's impressed? Give her a hand clap. Now, can I do that to you right now?
You're very close to that.
All right. Well, our time is coming to an end, but please inspire us because we need to know why judo would be something that everyone can do.
Judo is a wonderful activity, particularly for the young. If you know any young...
Particularly for the young.
Yes.
Is there age there? What does young mean? Young at heart?
Young at heart.
Okay.
Just because, like any sport, it's easier to learn when you're young, when your joints are still flexible, that kind of thing. Anyone could learn at any age. It is easier to learn in youth, and it's easier to counsel people in older age.
Well, do they have like the golden years judo?
There are people who do judo all the way through age 80 and 90. And in Japan, people do it up to 100.
Wow.
Actually.
I need to stop you there. Our time is over. This has been Helen Alexander on interrogation. Give her a hand clap.